Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey here with Chris Ballas and Anthony Broom as we preview Michigan against Arkansas State in week 3. It's Thursday, September 12th. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're hoping the Wolverines bounce back with a win this weekend, hit the subscribe button as well. And a special offer this week for our podcast listeners and viewers. You can go to thewolverine.com right now. Use the promo code UM1 and get 2 months of premium access over at thewolverine.com for just $1, so 50 cents a month. Best deal in America is back over at thewolverine.com. Michigan looking to bounce back coming off of last week's loss to Texas. First ever meeting with Arkansas State. They were supposed to play in 2020. We all know how things went there. Big Ten only schedule. But Butch Jones bringing his team to the Big House. Saugatuck native. I was watching his press conference earlier this week. He had a Verner's up there on the podium. He was talking about better made potato chips and looking forward to get back to the state of Michigan. Anthony is a Central Michigan grad. He was once the CMU head coach, goes to Cincinnati, Tennessee, and famously the rehab stint at Alabama after getting fired like many other coaches, and has done a pretty good job at Arkansas State here. They've improved every year in his fourth season, make a bowl game last year, the Camellia Bowl. They lose 21-19 to Northern Illinois, who goes on and beats Notre Dame last week. So it's a reminder that there are no guarantees in college football, but Arkansas State's 2-0 for the first time since 2008, 34-31 win over Central Arkansas, and then a 28-24 win over Tulsa, both games at home. They needed a game-winning score with 3 seconds to go to get past Central Arkansas, which is number 7 right now in the current FCS rankings. But regardless, from a Michigan standpoint, a big opportunity for Michigan to come back, bounce back off that loss, for the coaching staff to show they still have this team here in the early going, ready to move forward heading into Big Ten play, and the leaders too, to say, hey, we can bounce back and overcome what was last week. And as some of them said this week, not let Texas beat us twice.
Oh, you want me to talk now?
That's
the longest intro in the history of our podcast. So nice job, Clay. I think you summed it up, right? You summed up everything. What is the Camellia Bowl, by the way? What's Camellia?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm going to have to look that up. Maybe one of you guys can look that up while I'm chatting here, because I am just, when you said that, I'm like, wait a minute, not familiar. So Butch Jones, AB's boy, I think he's a pretty good football coach. And I bet AB loved him when he was there and was sorry to see him go. He did good things at Central Michigan and really seemed to kind of be on that fast track to being one of those coaches that was going to be highly successful with a Power 5 team. Obviously didn't work out for him. And here we are. But this is a team that's going to probably be fundamentally sound. Michigan's going to, this is not a week really. We know they're going to win. They better damn well win. Otherwise you're in serious trouble. But this is the week where you have to figure out, first of all, your personnel. If guys aren't getting it done and there's somebody else behind them that's even close, they need to get a shot. And I'm talking about right tackle, obviously, with Evan Link, who's struggled mightily last week and struggled in the first week as well, but showed some signs. He didn't look the part physically or mentally against Texas. So if an Andrew Gentry or somebody like that is ready, you get him in there. You got to tackle better. You got to play good assignment football. You've got to know where you're supposed to be and when. The communication needs to be much better. And as I wrote in Keys to the Game today, fellas, that's where it all starts for me. No linemen pulling into the asses of their centers. No guys running wrong routes. No guys fumbling without just because they aren't tucking the ball away. None of that crap. This needs to be a fundamentally sound football team. If it is going to beat some of the better teams on the schedule, they can get away with talent at beating some of the middling Big Ten schools on the schedule, but they aren't going to beat anybody worth a crap if they don't clean that stuff up. This is the week to start getting right.
Yeah, and for the second week in a row, you're facing a head coach who went to the Nick Saban home for wayward boys and came out clean the other side. So shout out to Steve Sarkisian, shout out to Butch Jones, of course. Yeah, I mean, this is a week where I think the latest Vegas odds are 23.5, or we'll talk about that kind of stuff later on with Michigan. But I mean, this is an identity week. I said that similarly last week. It means a little bit something different this week, just in terms of getting back to who you are. This team needs to figure out its offensive line, its starting five there. You got to, get this run game going. I think that's going to make things a lot easier for Davis Warren, who I know the statistics haven't been kind to him. Some of the QBR numbers haven't been kind to him. PFF grades have actually been much kinder to him. And, when you watch him on film, I mean, you can see that this can be a guy that leads an effective Michigan offense. But this week is all about, like Clayton said in the open, not making the Texas game bite you in the rear end twice. I mean, now, you're kind of been drinking out of the fire hose a bit these first 2 weeks. Fresno State was a quality opponent that you opened the season with. Texas is as good as anybody in the country, and you learned a lot about yourselves last week. Sneakily, I think it's an opportunity for these guys to learn a lot about themselves coming off of a loss. That's typically where you learn the character of some of these Michigan teams. It was 2021, you lose to Michigan State, and that unlocked, the next level of what that Michigan team was going to be. A couple of years ago, you lose to TCU. It unlocks the run that was last year. I'm really interested in seeing what that loss last week unlocks in this program, because I think, man up. I think everyone in that building knows they can do something better to get themselves ready for what these games will be coming up. So, excuse me, really interested in seeing where it goes from here.
Let's get into some more specifics. But before we do, we got to talk about our friends over at PrizePicks. It's the most fun way to watch sports with PrizePicks, where you can win up to 100 times your money this football season. You select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. It takes about 2 seconds. It's a fun way to test your skills as a fan. It's simple and easy to play. You can make your picks, submit them in literally 10, 20, 30 seconds. Especially if you're like me, you just kind of wing it. You don't have to put too much thought in it. You go with the gut feel, and sometimes you come out with a win. I'm going with a couple Thursday night picks this week in the NFL. Tyreek Hill more than half of rushing and receiving touchdown, and then Josh Allen more than 39.5 rushing yards this week. Fellas, what are your picks?
Yeah, I've got Tyreek less than that. Crazy. This is crazy that we continue to have the same picks here. It must be the Thursday thing, I guess, the Thursday night game. And then I've got Josh Allen in honor of our Ryan Tice going more than that as well on the ground. I think he's going to have some success there. I like the Bills to win this game too pretty handily. Not that it matters.
Yeah, I'm going with that Thursday night game. I'll go with Tua Tagovailoa, more than 5.5 rush yards. Have a nice little QB scramble somewhere in this game. And then I'm looking at Arizona State, Sam Leavitt, 183.5 pass yards. I'm going to go with more than that for him this week. So those are my picks.
Yeah, he's been really good. The Michigan State transfer. If you want to join us and put in your own prize picks, test your skills as a fan, we have a special offer for you. Go to prizepicks.com or the PrizePicks app. Use the code Wolverine to receive $50 guaranteed once you play $5 in lineups. Again, prizepicks.com or the PrizePicks app. Use the code Wolverine to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. I can't wait to check back on Saturday for the projections for the college football games as well. Sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Just use the promo code Wolverine. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Let's talk about the Michigan offense heading into this game, a unit that really needs to get going, I think, heading into USC, because USC poses a challenge for you with their offense, but with that, you're going to have to counter. You're going to have to score some points. That's going to be the case in a lot of games this year. You can't go into Washington a couple weeks after that and expect to win without having good quarterback play, good offensive play. We talked on Monday about how Sherrone Moore said, they want to run the ball more. They want to, get back to that sort of identity. I think this is the perfect opponent to do it against. They have struggled mightily, Arkansas State, against the run this year, against Central Arkansas, 7.3 yards per carry, 235 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Last week to Tulsa, they give up 163 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. So you want Davis Warren, these wide receivers, to get more reps. They need to build up that chemistry, but they also got to get back to the ground, and I think they should have some success there.
They better have a lot of success there, right? No more excuses and no more bullshit out there playing like a bunch of guys that don't know where they're going and what they're doing. It was embarrassing, and it's been embarrassing for Michigan offensive line. Sherrone Moore said before the season, he said, as long as I'm here, we're going to be good up front. We're going to be smashing and everything else. And you got guys that are, oh, my God, there's my guy I was supposed to block, running past the play, and guys who don't know where the hell they are. That's not acceptable here at a place like Michigan. And I would imagine that Jerry Hanlon somewhere was watching that football game, Michigan's former line coach, and maybe Les Miles, and saying, what in the hell was that, especially after what we saw the last 3 years. But the good news is we know that Sherrone Moore can coach offensive line because he's done it very well in the last 3 years. If he has to get a little bit more hands-on for to help a 27-year-old line coach in Grant Newsome, then he needs to. And that's where his attention needs to be, because that is really, you can look at Davis Warren right here, who's on the screen right now, and say, oh, he's the problem and blah, 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 blah. And you'd be an idiot. It really starts up front. Davis Warren has not been great. Nobody expected him to be great. We didn't expect him to be great. And we never said he was great in camp. We said he was the best option that they had, but he could be better if the guys around him were doing their jobs. And that includes wide receivers getting open and correct spacing and everything else. I know that Ron Bellamy said if you look at the all 22, there was some separation at times, but at the same time, there are also guys that aren't where they need to be and the spacing isn't right. All of that stuff needs to be fixed so that you can put Davis Warren in a better position. And I think the backs are fine with the exception of a couple of missed holes against Texas. One was a big one, Donovan Edwards. I still want to see more of Kalel Mullings, and they need to run this team over and play with an edge. I didn't think they came out with an edge against Texas. I don't want to say they looked flat because I think that's a cop-out, right? If you can look, other than that Ohio State game a few years ago in which Clay said, man, these guys look ready to play, and I agreed with him. I think that's kind of overblown. But those guys kind of looked resigned a little bit, or reserved coming out of the tunnel against Texas. They need to get their edge back and play like and be Michigan again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, this week is entirely about resetting that blueprint, reestablishing what that blueprint is. And it starts up front. I mean, the left side has been solid. It hasn't been perfect. Nothing's been perfect for any of these position groups. But you look at the center position. I think that since that first half of the Fresno State game, I think we've seen Dom Jadis play a little better. I think that the right side of the line, to me, and I kind of identified it, 3 guys on offense, 3 guys on defense I'll be looking at going into this game. For me, Giovanni El-Hadi is a guy that really, not to single anyone out, but, in the offseason, you hear Sherrone Moore or one of his position coaches say that, he could have been a starter for us last year. He could be a guy that was in an NFL training camp right now. And I've seen a lot of confusion, a lot of uneven play. I know he's making a flip from the left side to the right side, but he himself said that right side was more natural for him because that's what he played in high school. So that's an area that needs to get better. I think that right tackle job, like you said, Chris, I mean, Evan Link, I think, can be something in time, but we talked about it early this week. I wonder if a little too much was put on the highs and lows of camp performances as opposed to the steadiness of them. I would love to see Andrew Gentry get a shot there, maybe Jeff Percy get a shot there at some point as well, but you got to find your best 5 because USC is obviously, not that you're overlooking this opponent, but you're getting ready for a 3-week stretch that includes USC. We know PJ Fleck and Minnesota are going to come in and play a physical brand of ball. And then you go out to Washington for a road trip. And, Washington's got their share of issues, but, that is the road trip. And it is, a West Coast game where historically Michigan hasn't fared super well out there. So there's a lot to answer. I think there needs to be a sense of urgency. That offensive line, I think, is kind of the key to everything right now. We've been saying it for years. When you can control the line of scrimmage, you kind of get to dictate how a game goes. And last week, we saw Texas dictate how it went on both sides of the line in that matchup. So that Michigan offensive line is, I think, easily the group to watch this week, with the most ramifications moving forward.
It'll be interesting to see if they do make some personnel changes based on what happened last week, but, the first 2 weeks as well. And how much of it from the coaching staff's eyes were, okay, we're a young team. We got a bunch of new guys playing, in roles that they haven't been in the past against one of the best teams in the country. Or was it, okay, no, we do need to look at other options. We need to make some, bigger changes. It'll be interesting to see what the staff does there. But I think no matter what, or no matter who's out there, they need some reps. And these are going to be pretty valuable in game, third down situations. Can Davis Warren make the plays that he needs to? Can the offense stay on schedule and put him in better positions? When they get down past the 50-yard line, maybe they can, finally stop relying only on Dominic Zavada to score them points. They need to finish some of these drives too when they get into enemy territory. And especially when you're playing a lesser opponent like Arkansas State that has, been very susceptible to giving up yards and points in its first 2 weeks against lesser opponents than even them. So, I think this offense has a lot to prove this weekend. They got to, figure out what their identity is going to be, what they do well. As Max Bredesen said after last week's game, we need to figure out what we do well, what it feels like to execute that, and then go do it multiple times over and over with consistency. And that's something that they're searching for. So this is kind of the last tune-up before Big Ten play where you can do that. And of course, they'll hopefully improve throughout the year, but they're going to need to get a lot going this week. And if we flip over to the Michigan defense against the Arkansas State offense, I think, this is a nice opportunity for Michigan to run the ball offensively. And on the defensive side, it's a good opportunity to play discipline after you were extremely undisciplined last week. Jalen Rayner comes in. He was the Sun Belt Freshman of the Year last season at quarterback, extremely mobile, very athletic. Design runs is something they do for him. Also, he'll scramble out on pass plays as well. He's got 10 first down runs this season already. Pretty good receiving core, so they can throw the ball a little bit, have a couple good running backs, but more than anything, this Michigan defense should dominate. They should play much more disciplined, be in the right spots, fly around this weekend.
They better, and they better own this offense and get their swagger back, because that was embarrassing again last week. And I don't use that word lightly when it comes to football, but the linebacker play was as bad as I've seen in years, and that is not an overstatement. That was actually the truth. If you go back and watch the film, and you've got two guys in there that have played a lot of football at a high level, it needs to be better than that. I don't care who you blame. Obviously, the blame ultimately rests on the coaching staff. They need to be better. Those guys up front, I thought, looked a little gassed in the first few drives, and which you don't expect, right? And yeah, they're playing more snaps than they're used to, but at the same time, I expected them to hold up a little bit better. It's easy for me to say when you're getting combo blocked by 700 pounds at times, right? But I would expect those front four, that we gave so many props to in the preseason to really play the way they're capable of. Those four guys were the guys that were on the field at the end of that Alabama game and made the play to win the game. And we need more. They need more from them. So, and on the back end, better communication. We knew they were going to miss Rod Moore, fellas, when he went down with his knee injury. When it came to that. But Makari Page, again, not the loudest guy, not the most vocal guy. Somebody's got to step up and say, okay, and take responsibility. I think Rod Moore tried from the sideline. It's much easier to do when you're on the field. And they need some of those guys to step up to make sure that the communication's better on the back end. You cannot have receivers running open in the secondary there. So I think, and I've said, that this defense can get by on its talent against a good majority, a good portion of the schedule. But against teams like USC, against teams like Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, they've got to be much, much better than they showed.
Yeah, and again, you give credit to Texas for a lot of what they did to that Michigan defense last week. I mean, they were extremely clutch on third downs, but I know that's an offensive line that could win the Joe Moore Award. They really could. But when we talk about Mason Graham and Kenneth Graham, we often do so with the expectation that these guys could be first-round picks as soon as next year. And those guys are supposed to wreck games. And they didn't affect last week's game. And when you're as good as, we think they are, and as good as some of these scouts think they are, it doesn't matter what that matchup is. Those guys are supposed to be game wreckers and dominate. And we didn't see much of that last week. And this is an opponent now where it's not Texas. It's not even Fresno State. I think they're somewhere in the 100s with ESPN's FPI, which is not the be-all, end-all, but there's no reason that you shouldn't dominate and wreck this game. And you know what? Get some of those guys behind them some reps because you're up so big, given that they have depth questions and got to get guys a lot of snaps. So to me, I mean, this is so much of this game, not just on defense, but on both sides of the ball, comes down to handling your business, being assignment sound, and making kind of quick work of a team like this. And again, I don't. There's a part of me that questions this group's ability to do that at this point. Not to say that it could be a close game or that they'll lose or anything like that, but I want to see that. Even to a certain extent in the Fresno State game, we saw a bit of a killer instinct where you go down, it's a 1-score game, you score a touchdown that takes them, makes it a 2-score game, and then the next drive, pick 6 that ends the game. Need to see that and then some this week against Arkansas State.
They looked really good against Fresno. Really good. And that was, something we were talking about going into Texas is, okay, this defense should keep Michigan in the game. And that was a major disappointment that they didn't. But I would expect, like you said, CB, against these lesser opponents, they're probably going to dominate. And, we've seen a lot of these Michigan defenders play well against much better teams too, which is part of the disappointment of what happened during Texas. But they should be able to come out and play really well in this game. I know Arkansas State has some weapons offensively. They may make a few plays, right? I mean, that happens in some of these games, but I want to see this Michigan defense respond, force field goals if they do allow one big play that gets, the other team into field goal range, that sort of thing. Just play with that steadiness, that organization, that communication that we saw from them really against Fresno State, but more so last season when a lot of these guys were here. They were coached by, the Jesse Minters. They saw how Mikey Sanders still handled himself and guys like that. So hopefully see a little bit more of that for a confidence boost heading into the game against USC next week. Before we move on, I just have to mention Dominic Zavada playing against his former team. What a win in the transfer portal by Michigan to pick him up. And if you are looking down the road, okay, Zavada's got 2 years of eligibility this year, next year. You got a kid coming up who's not too bad for Arkansas State, Clune Van Andel, a Michigan native out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Of course, Van Andel, people on the west side know that name. Could he be the next Michigan kicker in a couple of years? Who knows? But they got a pretty good kicking pipeline down there, and Michigan is thankful for that with the weapon that is Dominic Zavada as well. What a win.
Dominic's going to make them pay for getting rid of him.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's not in the form of a 55-yard field goal that walk it off.
Yeah, that's right. How do you spell Clune, by the way? Klune? Is it
Clune?
Clune. It's a unique name. So, but hey, keep an eye on this kid, and if he's as good as expected, hey, we'll take Arkansas State as a feeder program. So for all your kicking needs, and
no doubt.
But boy, what a job Zavada has done. He's Jake Moody-esque, fellas, and has a chance here with what I imagine will be a ton of field goals this year. I hate to say it, to really set some records and do some good things here.
No doubt.
It was cool to get to talk to him the other day too. Just seems like kickers, elite kickers, are kind of wired just a little bit differently, and he's a guy that reminds me a lot of a Jake Moody, and even kind of has his own spin on it too. He's really a lot of kickers will kind of make their kicks and just kind of tap helmets and give high fives, but he's fiery out there too. That being said, you'd like to see a little less of him unless it's extra points. But yeah, I mean, he is, as much as a weapon can be as a kicker, he is that for Michigan. So thank God for him at this point, or who knows what would have happened in week 1 or whatever you think. So
no doubt. And it's also not just Clune Van Andel. Butch Jones has brought in a lot of Michigan guys as well. We'll see Char Willekes, the younger brother of Kenny Willekes, who was the 2018 Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year at Michigan State. They got a kid from Belleville who plays linebacker as well. So he's building some of that Michigan pipeline. And if any of those guys are good and have years left, in the coming years that he brings down there, who knows? Maybe they'll come back up and play in state, but and be kind of that feeder school for Michigan. Way too early to predict that, though. Let's get to our predictions for this game. We'll do offensive player of the game, defensive player of the game, our X factor, our final scores. But before we do, we have to talk about Gametime, which is the official ticketing partner of the Wolverine podcast by fans, for fans. It's the easiest way to get tickets to the biggest games, concerts, or shows. The app is super easy to use as well. My favorite part of the app is that you can see a photo of the view in which your seat will give you. It is, there are no surprises at all. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Went to a Tigers game this year. Shout out Tigers. They're playing right now using Gametime. You can use the promo code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code ON3. That's ON numeral 3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code ON3 for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Our predictions for this game. We'll start with offensive player of the game. Who wants to start?
I'll go with Kalel Mullings. I think this is going to be a game in which Michigan runs the ball a lot. I think he is Michigan's best pure running back on this team. I think he's going to run over some people. I expect 100+ from him on Saturday.
I'm going to give number 16 some love this week. Davis Warren, he is Michigan's best quarterback. I think that the end of last week has a chance to be a nice little springboard for him and what they can do with him in this offense. So look for Davis Warren to have a couple touchdowns this week.
I have Davis Warren too. I think that Michigan's going to leave him out there, even if they have a big lead. I think these reps are going to be valuable. They want to establish the ground game, but they also want to get him, some chemistry with those receivers because they need that going into the Big Ten schedule. I'll start with defensive player of the game. I do have Mason Graham. I think you're just going to overpower these guys, and the team leaders on this squad are going to play, somewhat angry about what happened last week, especially on defense.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Mason Graham's going to be able to he might get some more attention in there, though. That's the one thing that makes me a little nervous. And Kenneth Grant, I thought, got handled at times last week. And so Mason Graham might draw the double teams, but this guy's proven to be able to beat those too. So I like Mason Graham. I think he's going to come out if he, and who knows how much he'll play in this game, right? As some of these guys, we'll see. So, but I'm with you there.
Ernest Hausman, to me, last week, one of the worst tackling performances I think we've seen from really both Michigan linebackers in a long time. But that's something that I think he's got to wear. That's something that, Junior Colson the last few years made it look so easy back there, just kind of as a second level cleanup guy. They need Ernest Hausman to be that, and I think it's going to be a much, much better performance for him. Wouldn't be surprised to see him have double-digit tackles this week.
Yeah, he's better than he showed, and he needs to be.
Mm-hmm. My X factor is going to be Benjamin Hall. I like what I saw from him last week. I do think this one's going to get out of hand a little bit. We'll talk about that in a second, but I think he's going to get his reps. He's shown well in spring games, mop-up duty, and then even last week against Texas in the third quarter. So I like Ben Hall here.
I like Tommy Doman to finally get out of his funk and start flipping field the way he needs to be, because that's been a huge disappointment. And this kid's much better than he's shown. Every time I watch him in warm-ups, guys, and everything we heard about scrimmages over on State Street, he's been kicking the hell out of the ball. So he needs to do that. There are going to be some times they get stopped on Saturday. I think he's going to have a big day.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with a guy that we talked to this week, Kendrick Bell. It seems like Michigan is still looking for that third guy next to Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris. Kendrick Bell, I think I'm not worried about the effort that a Bell brings to the table. So wouldn't be surprised to see him have a nice game.
Yeah, one of the positive attributes Ron Bellamy gave him on Wednesday was he's a Bell. And everyone knows what that means, and you can't disagree with it. So I like that pick. He's actually second right now in wide receiver snaps, and he said even he's been surprised by his amount of playing time. Final score, I got 52-3. I think the Wolves will be eaten up by the Wolverines in this game, and Michigan will roll. And I just think it's a bad opponent. I know they made a bowl game last year, but they won a lot of close games. I think Michigan is going to roll here.
Clay's won staff picks, I think, the first 2 weeks, and I am going to say that if they score 52 points, I will buy you dinner.
Okay.
At the establishment of my choice. Okay. So, yeah. Well, that's a little pricey. Well,
like David Putty.
I said my choice. Okay. So we'll see. We'll see what's on the dollar menu there, but I don't think it's going to get to that. I got Michigan 34-6. I like the offense to run the ball better, but I don't think they're going to get enough possessions to rack up 52 points. Maybe the defense surprises me and dominates with a bunch of 3-and-outs, but I'm going 34-6 and hopefully a nice rebound game in which everybody does their job and does it well.
Clay, I'll one-up Chris here. I mean, if 52 points happens, you come over to Regents Field after the game, and your entire night's rounds are on me. So
Well, you need to write my articles for me then, because then I'll really get hammered. And we can
Wow,
have
that's you might need
Your
that.
be done by 6:30.
We've done some of our best work under the influence. No, I'm just kidding.
I know I have.
Let's go. I'm going 31-10 Michigan. I know it's similar to what the Fresno State game looked like at the end, but I think this one will look a little bit different. I think it's going to be workmanlike. I think you'll see them kind of slowly start to figure some things out and end on a high note heading into this USC game. So not sexy on paper, but I think that this one will be probably their cleanest of the 3 non-conference games.
to make some big plays on offense. I think would be.
Yeah, come on, man. Let's get some explosive plays.
Yeah,
and I don't mean 12 yards for crying out loud.
They give them some confidence too, heading into the rest of the schedule that they can.
USC game's huge, fellas. That's the one.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you got smaller margin for error now going forward. Let's finish off with No Man Knows the Future. 4 games that we will pick this weekend in college football. A pretty good weekend here. Starting with the big noon game on Fox, Alabama at Wisconsin. It's going to look awesome just to see Alabama playing at Wisconsin. Alabama's 16-point favorite, over under 50.5. Tide were bad last week for 3 quarters, pulled away against USF for a second straight year. I'm going with them, though. I just don't trust Wisconsin right now.
In that atmosphere, boy, I like a lower scoring game, and I like Wisconsin to lose, but by less than the 16. So
that's fair.
So that's where I am right now. And first things first, I want to say thanks to our incredible producer, Megan. I got rid of the mortgage on my house by betting it all on Nebraska last week based on her intel. She nailed it, every part of it, not just a guess on the score, but she nailed the way that game was going to go. And so thank you, Megan. I'll buy you a coffee, or I'll buy you dinner when I buy Clay McDonald's.
Some people would disagree. I'm not prone to hyperbole. It's a tough word to say this week. I'm getting there's some sour vibes with the dairy raid and with Luke Fickell, and I think Alabama's going to put it on him. So I'm going Alabama in this game.
Notre Dame at Purdue. Notre Dame got embarrassed by a fellow Camellia Bowl participant last week. That was just, like the day wasn't going so great around here in Ann Arbor. And then the day got just a little bit better a couple hours later. But they lose to Northern Illinois. They're looking to bounce back. No one knows the status of Riley Leonard. No one knows if it matters because he was so bad throwing the football last week. They're a 10-point favorite, over under 45.5. Anthony, start us off. We'll go reverse.
I'm going to go Purdue. I don't know why. I'm going with Clayton's guy, Walty, this week, though.
Walty. I like Notre Dame, unfortunately, on the road to bounce back, playing a little bit better than they did. I think they sleepwalked through that game last week. They're clearly much better than they played against Northern Illinois, and I think they have too much talent. I think they're going to come back and win by 17 points.
Yeah, I got Notre Dame, too. I don't know why. I just feel like they will bounce back regardless of who the quarterback is. And yeah, Walty's on the other side. I trust Marcus Freeman. Who's going to screw it up? Marcus Freeman or Ryan Walters? Who knows? But I'll go with Notre Dame. Indiana at UCLA. Another show favorite. Curt Cignetti taking his team to the Rose Bowl. When are they going to make it back to the Rose Bowl other than playing UCLA? IU 3-point favorite on the road. 46.5 is the over/under. 7:30 on NBC. I will be tuned in. And I think IU is going to cover 3 points.
I agree. The Cignetti guy, I've always liked him, as you know. I think he's kind of a clown, right? When it comes to look at me, Google me, look at me. Look at who you think you're talking to here,
He wins.
So, but he does win. He seems to be a pretty good football coach, and I think Indiana covers that pretty easily. As a matter of fact, hard to believe, but true.
What a juxtaposition at Big Ten Media Day when you have Deshaun Foster come out and kind of freeze up and say, we're in LA. And then you have Curt Cignetti, who, and I quote, says this. He was talking about, his players talking in the locker room about getting to play at the Rose Bowl. Curt Cignetti says, we're just going to an old stadium to kick somebody's ass. I'm going Indiana big this week.
Yeah.
Send in the car. He's that guy from Die Hard. Send in the car. You know what I'm talking about? Anthony does. We'll bring that up next week for these young people who have no idea what the hell I'm talking about.
I'm a diehard fan.
All right.
Yeah, their student section's called the smoking section at Indiana because of SIG. I mean, that's pretty good. So they got things, you know.
Wait a minute. Oh, SIG, I get it.
Yeah, Coach SIG. Yeah,
I thought it was because of the women there or something. Okay, that makes me feel better. All right.
So no, for Coach SIG, and they got things going. They're going to get things going a little bit, I think, in Bloomington. Arizona at Kansas State is our final game. It's the only ranked on ranked matchup this week. Kansas State 7.5-point favorite, over under 59.5, 8:00 on Fox. Give me Arizona. I'll take the points on the road. They got a great quarterback, great receiver.
Yeah, you know what? I like Arizona too. I think their passing game. I think they're gonna put up some big numbers down there. I think they might actually win that game.
I will go Arizona as well. Tetro McMillan is a monster. Excited to watch him play.
Absolutely. So that is our show for this week. We'll see how our picks do. We'll see how Michigan does bouncing back against Arkansas State. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video, hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button as well as we near 30,000 subscribers, and head to the Wolverine.com. Special promo for you this week. It will not be here next week, so take advantage right now. Promo code UM1 for 2 months of premium access for just $1. So get you through the majority of Michigan's football season over at the Wolverine.com. Enjoy the game, and we'll see everyone next time.